to be finishing up my Blast Premier Springs preview and predicting who's going to win in the knockout stage and who's going to qualify for the spring final and who's going to have to fight their way back through the spring showdown. So without further ado, let's hop right into the predictions. So first things first, I want to do a little recap of each group and just kind of give my thoughts on the type of CS I saw and whatnot. And for Group A, Astralis was pretty disappointing. The device, Premier wasn't as productive as Astralis had hoped. Same thing could be said about Buzz. He had an ace in his first ever round here with Astralis, but after that, his production was never even able to get close to that. And, Device had that one good map against Heroic, but other than that, he kind of just... he definitely wasn't his old self, and he was just Blame F, he had one or two great maps, a couple good ones, and then an one. But all in all, the team was just disappointing. Flat T sides, their holds were decent, but that's because they don't have to take as many fights, and with the passiveness of Device and Blame F, they're able to get away with more CT sided rounds. But there just wasn't a lot to be excited about with their premiere. Vitality looked amazing, making short work of Astralis on the first day, decimating Evil Geniuses, who beat Heroic on day one. And the second matchup wasn't as close, but they still managed to take a map off them and kind of put the pressure on. And then Vitality beat Heroic in the end of the group. So it's just a great showing from Vitality. Zywoo still gunning for that #1 spot in the world. Spinks proving he's still that top 20 rifler he was, especially in the beginning of last year. So it's just good to see all these parts finally kind of meshing. It's been long overdue, but this is one of those projects that can be credited with sticking together. A lot of teams would have called it quits, and they did make the roster change to bring in Spinks, but they didn't do anything else. They didn't kick Apex, they didn't remove Dupree, who's kind of been slacking individually. So I respect the fact that they've been rocking with it and trying to figure out how to make it work best, and it paid off here. They qualified to the spring final, first of their group, so good for them. Moving on to Group B. Right off bat, biggest disappointment is Liquid. Kind of just losing to OG on day one. I was just like, okay, that is kind of to be expected. Or not to be expected, but they talked about how they were going to experiment some, and that can be seen with the T side start of Ancient and picking Nuke, a map they've never played with this core before, or not this core, but this roster. So it was just weird it was just a weird series. So I could credit the first loss to experimenting, but then losing to OG again, who just got decimated by FaZe today, it just wasn't a good look. I want to see more from them. I had them as a top 5 team, so it's just rough to see them like this. FaZe came out, and to me, they proved they're still the best team in the world. G2, yeah, they had a great, group stage, but really, they beat up on Big and beat a dysfunctional Na'Vi. So I'm not too impressed with G2's results, but FaZe, with a stand-in, without their coach, came in and made light work of their opponents after a somewhat disappointing world final. So I still have them as the #1 team, especially whenever Rain gets back. OG, all things considered, I really liked what I saw. Nexa played really well. They switched up a lot of their roles. Neofrag, in my opinion, was playing like their best player a lot of the times, and then you had moments from FlameZ, who reminded you why he's sometimes depicted as a star player. Dexter always popping off with that op. And then Fiku had a lot of really clutch rounds. Even if he didn't have the most statistical, insane performance, he passed the eye test by far. So OG firing on all cylinders. That was great to see. Complexity, I like to see something, They had a close map against Liquid, so I guess that's something. It's really kind of disappointing because they really did look good at Pro League last year, but ever since then they just failed to even come close to replicating that. So it's just they've just been a disappointment too, but not on the same scale as Liquid, because we all know that they're a capable, tier 1 team. Moving on to Group C, like I said before, G2 just came in, made light work of their opponents. Na'Vi played the new NIP twice, and Big is just, I don't know. I don't want to say disappointing because this is what I expect, but I don't know how to make them better. And there's just nothing exciting about them either. They don't really have any young talent or, any cool new strats. They kind of just go in and play the most basic Counter-Strike. And against teams they're better than, it works. But whenever they're against a team that can just outskill them, that type of Counter-Strike doesn't work. They have to have some type of gimmick or something that they can rely on. And I just don't think that they have that, especially with Dust 2 being removed from the map pool. So I think that they are going to be a team that struggles for quite a while. And then Na'Vi taking care of NIP in 2 matchups. The second loss, I think, can be accredited to Maxter. In my opinion, he was their best player for the series, but there was just a lot of role dysfunction and short-term stand-in. But with the news that Config is now going to be signed for a long-term contract and replacing Hampus for the next, who knows, especially with him departing for personal reasons, just like Device, he could be out for the whole rest of the year. But Config is the better player, and they play almost identical roles. So I think NIP with that addition kind of just, maybe they could be a worse team in the beginning, but I think their ceiling just increased exponentially. And so that's something to keep your eyes on, especially with them already looking good against Na'Vi and then making short work of Big. I really like their little trio of riflers. Hampus, now that's Config, Rez, and Brolin. I think those 3 now with Headtrix kind of star opping and his capabilities with the rifle too. It reminds me somewhat of the 2018-19 Team Liquid. So I think that they could play a kind of similar Counter-Strike to that. Maybe get a little puggy, whatnot. Rely on trade frags. You don't have to play the most strategic, just kind of, go for trades. I think that style could really benefit them, and they could become a true contender. I love the Config edition. That came out of nowhere. I love that for them. But tomorrow we've got the matchups of Complexity, Evil Geniuses, and Big and Liquid. I think the Complexity EG game in a derby, I think that's going to end up with the Complexity getting eliminated and sent down to the Spring Showdown, which is quite disappointing. But EG showed great form in their group, and I expect that to continue. And I think that they're just a more talented team. And then in the round 2, Na'Vi should be able to take care of Evil Geniuses, but there's not really a team that has more upset potential than Na'Vi. So I wouldn't be too surprised if I saw Na'Vi getting sent to the Spring Showdown. But I think Blade will have his men in order, and they'll be ready. Moving on to the Big Liquid matchup, that should be a Liquid win. Like I was saying before, Big will beat the teams that they're better than, but there's like 15 teams in the world that are better than them, and Liquid is one of them. And then the Heroic Liquid matchup. Heroic should be able to take that one fairly confidently. They looked really, really good in the groups. Losing to Vitality, yeah, but I think that can just be accredited to Zywoo is arguably the best player in the world. So it's hard. Heroic is going to be a team that struggles against the Navis and the Vitalities and the Cloud9s because they have a Shiro or an Axile or a Bit or a Simple or a Zywoo who can just take over a game. And now FaZe arguably has that too, but in my opinion, they just have 4 really talented players and not really anyone who can just dictate the way the game is played. And all the players I listed before are capable of making sure, you know, oh, he's alive. It's a 2v4. We know he's on this side. Let's just go to the other one. And Heroic are going to struggle against teams like that because I like Stowen a lot, but he's not that player. And so their gimmicks sometimes will not work out for them against a Simple. But against Liquid, they should be able to take that matchup fairly easily because I think Liquid is a kind of a similar tier team of them, but Heroic just does everything better. And then moving on to the Astralis NIP matchup, that should be an NIP win. I would love to see Astralis win this and then beat OG as well, but like I said, they just came out flat. It was disappointing to see, disappointing to watch. I think that they can bounce back, but it'll take some time after this tournament. And so I'm going to have NIP winning this, and I actually think NIP are going to beat OG as well. I liked what I saw from OG a lot, but if Config is going to be playing for NIP, then I think that is a wrap for... Oh, but if it's Maxter that's playing... Okay. That changes my prediction. I think Astralis is going to beat NIP if Maxter is playing, and then OG will beat Astralis. So OG, Heroic, and Navi will all qualify for the spring final, and everyone else will be eliminated. And so I think that's about it. Thank you guys for watching this video. Make sure to drop a like, subscribe if you're new, all that. I appreciate you guys so much. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you.